the woods. Calmly, he says it is his mother. Gray takes his hand and follows him into the dark trees. Later, Ingrid searches everywhere for her dad until a carnival worker finds her father's handkerchief soaked in blood. The story then jumps back to 1962 at the Black Spot. The masked mob has arrived hunting for Hank Grogan. They storm inside with guns out, Chief Bowers leading the charge, and Hank steps forward as his daughter Ronnie screams. The standoff flips fast because the black soldiers and their friends are armed too. The mob pulls back outside, chains the front door, tosses Molotov cocktails through the windows, and fires into the building. Chaos erupts. People try to escape through fire and bullets as the Black Spot burns. Halloran pushes through the flames, spotting a soldier from the tunnels with his jaw torn off before forcing himself into action. He shifts a fridge, breaks through the floor, and prepares to escape below, but freezes when he sees a vision of an indigenous woman wearing a bear head. Meanwhile, outside, Pennywise walks through burning debris and tells a black woman to take his hand so he can help her out. Instead, he bites deep into her face. Ronnie sees everything and runs into Halloran's arms, but Pennywise mocks him as the dead shuffle by. The indigenous woman stands beside Halloran while he begs them to show him where the kids are. Halloran reaches Hank, Ronnie, and Will and directs them toward a crawl space leading outside, but a collapsing wall traps Rich and Marge on the other side. Now alone, Rich finds a fridge to hide inside, but it only fits one person. He pushes a crying Marge into it and sits on top as he talks about knights guarding their maidens. Meanwhile, they confess their love for each other in a painful moment before the scene cuts, leaving their fate unknown. The mob speeds off in their cars. Stan Kirsch's vehicle refuses to start. He lifts the hood to fix it, unaware that someone else is near. Meanwhile, a clown approaches, not Pennywise, but Ingrid in full makeup. Behind Stan stands the killer clown holding a cleaver. He splits Stan's head open and eats while staring at Ingrid. She still thinks this monster is her father. She begs for her daddy to tell her he is going to sleep but will return. When he turns to leave, Ingrid grabs his arm, pleading not to be left behind. Pennywise turns, blood on his lips, and she realizes this is not her dad. She steps back as he admits he devoured her father, but says her father still lives inside him. His jaw snaps wide open, revealing the deadlights, and Ingrid rises off the ground. The next morning in Derry, the radio claims the Black Spot burned because of an electrical issue and reports Hank Grogan as one of the dead, even though we know his death has been staged. Meanwhile, surrounded by members of the tribe, Rose tells them the cycle is complete. It sleeps now, and the focus must shift to the lives saved and keeping the creature contained for the next 27 years. At the Halloran home, Charlotte tries calling someone who can smuggle Hank out of Derry, but the call goes unanswered, so she decides to go herself. Meanwhile, Will wants to tell Lily what happened to Rich, but his mother refuses to let him leave the house. Ronnie and Marge, wearing her eye patch, take the task instead. Lily sits in the dark holding her dagger when they enter. They break the news about Rich before going with her to clean up everything at the standpipe. One of Rich's little planes sits there. Marge picks it up and her friends hold her while she cries. General Shaw arrives at the new dig site to meet Halloran, who still sees the indigenous woman with the bear head watching him. They uncover a huge double turtle shell with a fragment of the star still inside. They lift it and box it for transport. The entity is asleep now, so they want the pillar taken back to base to study and use in finding the others. Taniel watches from a distance in shock, then runs off. He reaches Aunt Rose's house where Charlotte and Hank are waiting, asking for help sneaking Hank into Canada. At the Derry Air Force Base, the pillar is hauled away by workers in protective suits who attempt to burn it. Leroy pulls a gun, demanding they shut everything down. Meanwhile, General Shaw walks in and orders everyone to drop their weapons before pulling Leroy aside. None of this has been about Russia. With the country falling apart, he wants to stop a civil war. Fear will push people to listen and obey. The military is not interested in caging the creature. They want to unleash it. Derry seems calm after the Black Spot, and he sees that as proof. He gives the command to burn the pillar, and not even a gun aimed at him stops the order as the star melts in the white-hot flames. The episode ends deep in the sewers. Pennywise sinks into the ground to sleep, then opens his eyes. Meanwhile, back at the Hanlon home, Will hears the phone ringing. Ronnie is on the line, unable to process Rich's death. Her voice blends with Pennywise's as she says she can smell Rich. Will says he is done being scared, turns around and faces Pennywise's deadlights. Pennywise unleashes an eerily evil burst of orange light on two different characters in this episode. These are the deadlights, and they sit at the core of its power and its entire being. The deadlights are an eternal, grotesque force tied to something ancient. These lights are lethal and strange, and they are not only its abilities, but its truest form. Beneath the Pennywise persona and every shape it wears, the deadlights are what it actually is. Blinding, hungry void that destroys flesh and consumes souls. We already know Will grows up to become Mike Hanlon's father, but what condition he ends up in is still unknown. Whether he survives and returns to himself is left hanging. There is also the question of whether the tension between Leroy and Will continues to develop naturally between the show and the films, or if Will ends up changed by what he experienced when the deadlights hit him.